It's hot here, that kind of smothering kind of hot that comes in July. I don't know, it feels like one of those threatening summer days. Meanwhile, Blair's in the kitchen. I can smell bacon that she fried. She fried some of Alan Benton's bacon. I can see some catfish from Simmons Farms, friends down in Yazoo City, sitting out defrosting. I can smell the beginnings of my mother's catfish stew. The recipe, it's in my mother's hand, and it's framed up alongside the stove. And it's the recipe that her father cooked at his fish camp on the Edisto River. It was a blackwater river down in the low country, and they'd pull catfish up out of that river. And the recipe Blair now cooks kind of borrows from my mother's recipe, or begins with my mother's recipe, and then borrows from Scott Peacock and Edna Lewis's book, The Gift of Southern Cooking. And like any good recipe, like if you pick up the Edna Lewis and Scott Peacock book, you'll see like splatters from dozens of times of cooking that recipe on the pages. And those splatters are Blair's fingerprints on that recipe. And that's the recipe our family will carry forward. We began cooking that recipe a decade or so back after Blair and I had a conversation in which I was, probably guilt-riddled as I probably am now if I dig deep, about the failings of my relationship with my mother. We made a purposeful decision back then to cook this dish in memory of my mother. My mother was a small town girl who wanted a big city life. As a boy growing up, I felt really isolated. Like I had to get on a bike and ride about a half mile on a 2-lane highway clogged by pulpwood trucks to go play with other kids. And if I turned the other way, away from the road and toward the woods felt like a place of menace to me. It was that way for my mother too, I think. I carry my childhood in a different way than I hope Jess carries his forward. A month from now, our son Jess goes off to college. He's vibrating, like you can feel it's time for him to flee this house. I worry about what he'll carry from this place to that place. And I worry about the missing pieces. Have I taught him how to change a tire in a car? I mean, I have.
How to start charcoal on a charcoal grill. I used that the other day, and I was asking myself, why do I know how to do this? Then I remember he taught me. I made pork chops for my friend the other night, found some in his fridge, and I realized I knew how to make them just because my dad had taught me. Small things like that.
And then I think about all that he should carry. He should know the fullness of his family. And that's something I preach and practice within my work as a writer and a thinker about the South, and that to know the South is to know the fullness of the South, to know the horrors and the beauty to face them all down. So as I think about what Jess will carry forward, I want him to know the fullness of our family. I want him to know the whole of the experience. And he doesn't know a lot about my mother because I don't talk often about her. So cooking this stew and writing this essay are ways to equip him to move forward in the world. There's an artist and printmaker named Alberto Cruz, and we loved his stuff. And we bought this small print for Jess. I loved in that you could see it multiple ways. You could see that house as a burden, but you also could think about that house in the same way you think about it as a backpack that has the tools you need to do the work you need going forward.
I have it set up on my desk right now, and it's nice seeing something that I will see in 3 months on my desk in college. If you asked me like a year and a half ago, I'd have been like, hell no, I'm nothing like my dad. But the development of that relationship and the way that I see myself in him and the way that I see him and me is improved. And I think there's too many things to list off that I'm going to take from my parents into college. With my mom, her creative side, in terms of just seeing pretty things in life and making sure to point them out to yourself. Just kind of small things like that, but that turn into bigger things.
I often say to Blair that, we don't remember my mother in our lives, and she'll point out things to me that directly came from my mother. Right over your shoulder is a World War I poster my mother bought at an estate sale that's been hanging in every house I've lived in. Much of the silver with which we eat our meals, collected by my mother or handed down from her family. The china on which we eat is a gift from my mother. And so when we eat this catfish stew tonight, we'll eat in these spode china bowls with handles on each side which allow you to pick it up and slurp from the bowl, which is badass. I think she would have loved the fact that her recipes and her palate still alive in 21st century Oxford, Mississippi. Even more so, she would have taken pride in this house and the people who gather here. She always wanted to be a part of an arts community. She always wanted to be a part of a creative community, and she never got to. The people who come coursing through this house, the artists, musicians, writers, friends. My mother would have loved to be a part of that. She longed to be a part of that. To sit down tonight and eat her catfish stew is to recognize the connection between her instincts, her wants, her drive to be a part of what we have and what we have.